Jeff Marek, a man who is in the know, a man who is doing so much radio and podcasting today. I feel horrific for doing this to him because I'm actually like passing. It's like, hey, Jeff, can you do my show? But also I'm going to leave my show early so that you can set up. They were like, we don't want JD setting up this media conference. We want it to be Marek. We want it to have an air of professionalism. Then when it's over, it'll be you, Jeff, and then go make more podcasts about it, Jeff. So thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing what I think is going to end up being 4 slots on radio and TV today.
Even I'm sick of myself at this point, JD. Trust me. Even I don't want to be around myself at this point. It's been that much. But listen, I think they probably just didn't want to waste your time. Because essentially all I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a tie and say, all right, here we go. Welcome to it. We're going to hear from Brendan Shanahan. We're going to hear from Keith Pelley. We're going to hear from Brad Treliving. Oh, they're about to take the podium now. Yeah. Let's go to Scotiabank Arena.
I could have done that. The problem is that anybody watching on TV would have said the famous Conor McGregor line. Who the bleep is that guy? And then it would have gotten really confusing for the viewer. Anyways, okay, so I want to start with this because I want to go back to yesterday for a second before we go to what's going to happen today. They fired Sheldon Keefe. I thought that Luke Fox put it perfectly when he called him the necessary fall guy, right? Hey, you had your chances. They needed a new voice in the room. That was obvious. But the air of, hey, this is the only change that's going to happen, especially of major consequence that we know of, feels a little light. Is that the way that you're feeling about it too?
Well, I mean, I don't think this is anything close to done, right? Like, I think that was the obvious one, and like it was one of those things. Like when you heard Sheldon Keefe speak earlier this week, a couple of things. One, and Luke made this point as well. It did on the Kipper and Bourne show. It did very much feel like he was, in some ways, auditioning for his next job.
For sure.
Right? It was full mea culpa. It was, I'm jumping on the grenade here. I'm falling on the sword, all of it. You know, we didn't accomplish what we hoped to, and I take full responsibility for all of it. Me. All the attention is on me. I will accept responsibility for all of it. So right away he went into, and I understand why he did. I think we all did too. He went into, this is about setting up my next stop in my career. Like it was it's been one of those scenarios where, like the minute that David Pastrnak scored that goal on Saturday, we all had the same thing. We all thought the same thing. Sheldon Keefe's coach's last game with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He knew it. Sheldon Keefe himself, and he knew it himself. You're right. Like it was one of those scenarios where everybody knew it. There's a certain dance that has to come along with it. One thing that I will say about all of it was Sheldon Keefe this week. He went into the Brampton Sports Hall of Fame, and even though everybody knew that Sheldon Keefe was going to get fired, the Maple Leafs let him have that day. Yeah, and he didn't show up as, you know, the recently fired coach, and here's a bunch of microphones in his face about it. They let him have that day, even though everybody in the city, you don't even have to be a hockey fan to know that was the end for Sheldon Keefe. He knew it, we knew it, they knew it, everybody knew it, JD.
Yeah, I would have actually liked to have seen what the vibe was like at that Brampton Sports Hall of Fame, because everyone's just pretending like it's the day before an execution, and you're like, hey, everything's fine, everything's cool. He's like, yeah, it's great. It's a really cool. That's just a weird position to be like, you have today, and then we'll talk tomorrow, and you're like, oh, you know.
You're right. There was that element of winding your wristwatch on the way to the electric chair.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that everyone looked at that as some kind of a major kindness. And I went, I'm the opposite. I would rather.
Really, eh?
Yeah. Tear the Band-Aid off. I don't want to sit with it for 24 hours. Anyways, who cares? That's nothing. But yeah, I didn't view it as like, oh, wow, the Leafs really did him a thing. I went, yeah, this is probably more about the draft lottery. So we focus on the only time we'll ever see Macklin Celebrini. Like, that'll be the last time any of us ever see him.
I don't think that Sheldon wanted, and this is why I liked it, is they didn't want a firing to overshadow him going into the Brampton Sports Hall of Fame. Yeah. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, it's weird to be fired the same day. It's just that, again, like you said, the second that puck went in the net, he was fired.
Well, there's the element of, like, if he had already been dismissed, there's a sort of element of, well, other than the drive, Mrs. Kennedy, how'd you enjoy Dallas?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so here's my one thing that I didn't like about Sheldon Keefe's media conference, because I actually think he nailed it from the audition at the end, that if they did give him the option to speak and he decided to take it, that's incredible. He takes the accountability. He still stands up there. He doesn't sue anybody. He goes up. He defends Mitch Marner, who basically cost him his job, right? A guy who had 3 points in 7 games and just like never, ever, ever had a moment in that series where he like dominated or elevated or stood out for Keefe. Actually, even more impressive that he did that at the podium now that I think about it, because there were no players that like went crazy for Keefe at their media exits either when asked about it. They kind of pleaded the fifth on a lot of the answers, like, yeah, he's a good coach, is fine. But there was no staunch defense of Sheldon Keefe, like I think there even has been in the past. Goes up there, he answers all the questions. The one thing that stood out to me that I didn't love was when he was talking about the power play, he kind of defended it. And he went, we had a lot of good process. And he went, yeah, games 3 and 5, I thought we got chances. And we only had 1 power play in game 7, but we got chances at the net. And he referenced the process. And this is something that I think is going to be interesting about today. Where do you think they're at in terms of this whole... One of the things about the Shana plan is that trust the process, not the results. But now we're 10 years into results, and the process hasn't delivered any of them. Do you think there's going to be a shift in tone when it comes to that organizational element that has been such a staple for Brendan Shanahan?
You know, it's interesting. I was talking to one general manager last year, and we were talking about this very thing. And we were talking about process this and process that and underlying numbers. And I was saying something about this manager's team. This is a very analytically oriented organization that sort of leads with the numbers. And I was stunned. This manager just stopped me and said, you know, at a certain point, you just have to win a hockey game, right?
Yeah.
At a certain point, all of this is fine. But then at another point, reality starts, and you have to win a hockey game. So I think that there will probably be a different, for no other reason than perhaps only, you know, a crisis of confidence that the marketplace has about this organization and this hockey team. They don't want to hear about process anymore. They don't want to hear about don't worry, do the right things, and the wins will take care of them. Like, they don't want to hear that anymore. Like, that's it. That's over. It didn't get them anywhere in this very specific situation. It's worked for other teams, whether it's, you know, the Tampa Bay Lightning, for example, or the Colorado Avalanche, for example, or the Vegas Golden Knights, for that matter, who all follow the same sort of template. But I think this marketplace is sick of hearing we're doing all the right things. The underlying numbers tell us we're on the right track. Everything is going good. You know, ignore the losses in the playoffs each and every year. So I think that, you know, and Keith Pelley's smart. Like, listen, Keith Pelley worked, you know, for us, worked at the Evil Empire as well. Like, he understands the media game and understands how it's played, and appetites and tastes, and how you have to say certain things, and understanding. Like, he understands, like, what the temperature is. Like, he understands, like, you put the thermometer in the marketplace, he knows what the temperature is and what you should be saying and what you shouldn't be saying. So, a long-winded answer for you, JD, but yeah, I do expect some type of different tone in this press conference.
Well,
and I think a lot of it's like essentially what this press conference, I think, from a fan's point of view, is what is this team going to look like next season?
Yeah. Okay. So
that's the one question.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Not about, you know, structure and reporting, who reports to who and how does it all work. I think fans just want to know, what's this team going to look like next season?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, the structure and the thing is just no. This is, okay, there's a bunch of things there. One is, with the process results thing, I think is hilarious given where they're at right now, because if they continue down this road, if we think the process is good, it's like, you might actually just hire a head coach because of his results, right? Like, if they hire Craig Berube, it's largely because he won a Stanley Cup as a coach. Like, he got a result, and they're like, we're going to pay you for this. Two is, that is the most interesting thing to me at this media conference, is can you strike that tone of understanding the marketplace? Because today is going to be important. I know, listen, I don't want to freak you out here, but I'm going to reference a basketball thing, okay? So, you ready? Just relax.
Right. Put your head back, Marek. Here comes the drill.
So there's this guy. His name's Masai Ujiri. You know who he is?
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar, living in Toronto my whole life. Okay,
I know, but yeah. So anyways, Masai, after the Raptors' final loss, the year before they went out and got Kawhi Leonard, right? they suffer this incredibly disappointing, crushing loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers again. And it's the same thing over and over. Now they've hit the wall of just like their Bruins or just like their Game 7 in the first round, where it's like unpalatable, where they go, oh my God, there's just a tenor that shifts. And Masai Ujiri steps up to the podium and he tries to deliver this like, hey, you know, I don't like speaking at this time because nothing really matters. But then he gets really emotional and he starts kind of like tearing into the team and talking about the need for change. And like you could see the frustration on this guy that he had also reached his wit's end. And it was powerful. And then they went out that offseason and they did trade DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. And a lot of that, there was some fortune, some good luck involved. They fired their head coach as well, but they made their most massive roster change. And I kind of feel like that needs to be the tenor of these three guys up there today. Like, this is completely unacceptable, and we're willing to change basically everything and anything to make this thing happen.
Yeah. And that worked there, and they got a championship for it. Now, it's that fine line you walk when you want to keep the fan base appeased. And make no mistake about it. Like, you're right. And we talked about this off the top with Sheldon Keefe. Like, this volcano wants more than one virgin. Right? Yeah. Like, there's like, this volcano wants more sacrifices here. And I think it's a tricky line when you start letting your fans make your decisions for you. Having said that, and I reference, a crisis of confidence in, with the team from a business transactional point of view. You have to walk that fine line of selling both hope and wins at the same time, and not allowing your fans, just because it'll make them feel better and you get more season ticket renewals, make your hockey decisions for you. And that's going to be the ultimate threading of a needle here for Shanahan, Treliving, and Keith Pelley. And by the way, should mention one thing about Keith Pelley. I was having a conversation with someone recently about how hands-on and how involved Pelley is going to be in all of this. And unlike his numerous predecessors in that position, even something as what might seem pretty small, but in the organization seems large. Like, he went to 3 or 4 Toronto Marlies games. Like, he's like getting right into it, like rolling up the sleeves, getting involved in the organization. There's no sort of like hovering above all of it for that position at MLSE anymore. Like, he's right in there. Like, and we haven't seen that from someone in his position in a long time.
Well, given his track record and given his experience, I think that it's more than appropriate that guy is looking under the hood and examining everything, So, I actually think that if we're talking about a lack of accountability culture, which has sort of been the buzz around the Toronto Maple Leafs for a long time, having a new guy step in and look at everything and examine that part of it, I think that's a pretty good first step in trying to find some. Yeah. Okay, last one.
Hang on, one quick thought on that as well. I think that, and we talked about, Craig Berube and the Stanley Cup and all that. Yeah. There's perhaps your coach. I think what they're looking for at a lot of different levels of the organization right now is someone that can come in and make it a little less comfortable. Take a couple of cushions away from the couch. Remove a couple of pillows here. Like, let's. The Maple Leafs have always prided themselves, first-class organization, make it as comfortable as possible for your elite athletes and for people in the organization. I think very deliberately this is going to be a more uncomfortable place starting next season.
Which is so surprising that they ended up here in some ways, because the entire Shanaplan era started with Lou Lamoriello and him standing at the podium and going, we want the accountability and the front of the sweater and all these, like, they had every single platitude known to man to basically tell fans that they addressed that blue and white disease was a problem and that they wanted to shake that from the tree. And then all of a sudden we ended up here where you go, it's worse than ever. How did?
Well, the thing is, like, even Lou, like, right away with the Austin Matthews deal, right?
Yeah.
I don't give bonuses to rookies. About that.
So anyway, I know you got to run, but I need to ask you this one last question, which is, if you had truth serum, you give it to them today. If one guy, he gives you one truth serum answer where you get 100% transparency, they can't control it. What's the question you ask, and who do you give the truth serum to?
Oh, wow. To me, the big question is still the future of Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, that's not even just a general manager question. that is also a Shanahan question and a Keith Pelley. That is a Keith Pelley question. I mean, obviously it's Brad Treliving who's the manager that makes a lot of these decisions, but none of that is going to be made in a vacuum when you're dealing with someone like Mitch Marner. I think that's the big one. I think that's the one that fans want to know as well, and that's the one that can help reset this thing. Again, he carries the no-move clause. He dictates all of it, but I do think at some point they will go to Marner and essentially say, what do you want to do here? But I think that's, I mean, in any conversation about the Maple Leafs and culture of change and who's staying and who's going, I think Marner is still the big one here.
Yeah. Now you got to give the truth serum to Shanahan. Like, yeah, if you even, it's like, you don't have to be polite with the truth serum, giving it to Treliving, being like, this is up to you. It's like, no, just give it to Brendan. He knows. He nods his head. Treliving would understand too. Jeff, thanks again for coming on. Thanks again for taking half an hour off my show.
Buddy.
And thanks again for covering it in the post as well. We'll listen to you later today. Thanks, buddy.
I owe you lunch.
Yeah, you do.
I owe you lunch.
You owe me. All right, Jeff Marek of 32 Thoughts on the Jeff Marek Show.